welcome to the Country Education Partnership Free Professional Development Spring Series. My name is Brendan Ryan. Country Education Partnership wishes to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which our schools, our families and our communities work and play. We pay our respects to elders of the past, the present and those that will lead us collectively into the future. Welcome everybody to this, the third in our current professional development series. Today's topic is Bridging the Gap, Strategies for Building Strong Community Connections. It's my pleasure to introduce the Chief Executive Officer of the Country Education Partnership, Mark McClay, who will provide an update regarding current CEP activities. Mark.
Thank you, Brendan. Lovely to have everyone here and those watching the recording later on. Just two things happening in CEP world I just wanted to update people on. We've been involved in a program called Teach Rural, putting pre-service teachers into state government schools, rural state government schools this year, and just want to quickly share our early survey results. We're up to about 50 we've done this year. 80% of those pre-service teachers said they are considering a position in a rural school after their placement finishes, which is great. And we already have 4 who have committed to jobs next year. They've already got the job, so that's fantastic. So that's been a tremendous success. I was lucky enough to have dinner with a group up in Swiss Creek last night. And just the other thing, there is a inquiry into the state education system, a submission to the state government, which CEP will be making. And we're getting a group of experienced educators, principals, CEP life members together on Friday in Bendigo, of which John Richmond, who's here today, and Brendan will be part of that, to input into that submission around the key areas. So anyone who wishes to make their own submission, they are welcome. Just if you just type in Parliamentary Inquiry Victoria, I'm sure you'll find it. So there's 2 bits of work we're currently doing. Back to you, Brendan.
Thanks very much, Mark. Now, as usual, I'd like to start with some housekeeping. A reminder that this session is being recorded and you'll have an opportunity to review the session next week, whenever you feel as though there's time available for you to relook at the presentations, and all of the past activities sessions are also available, have been recorded. So we would encourage people to go back and have a look at it, have a look at those digital copies that are now available through CEP. The session will take exactly 1 hour, so we'll be finished by 5 o'clock. If you have a question, please include the question in the chat box and we'll endeavour to answer the question either today, and as I've said in the past, if we can't answer the question today, we'll get back to you at a later date. And towards the end of the session, there will be a survey provided in the chat box, and we would encourage everybody to please complete the survey before signing off from the session. Now, today's session is a focus on building strong community connections, and we have 2 speakers with us, and it's my pleasure to introduce our 2 speakers. The fact that I'm from the Wimmera Mallee, both of our speakers today are also from the Wimmera Mallee area of the state. So I'm happy to introduce our first speaker, Kingsley Dalgleish, who is the principal of St Pat's Primary School in Nhill. So welcome, Kingsley, and over to you.
Thanks, Brendan. Hope you can hear me all right through there. So a little bit about my own background. I came from Adelaide originally, and my fiance at the time and I wanted to get out into a country area to start my career. And there was an advert for a position at St Bridget's College in Horsham. And so we came across for the interview, and I actually caught up with a teacher who had been a year ahead of me at uni, and he said to me when I arrived for the interview, you won't stay in Horsham, it's a boring place, there's nothing to do. So I had 33 years at St Bridget's and in Horsham, and at no stage did I find the place boring at all. And I can see that Jared's online today from St Bridget's, so hello Jared. But 3 years ago, I made a bit of a change and took up principalship here at St Patrick's School in Nhill. I was seconded for 12 months initially, and I was charged with trying to create relationships and connections with the local community. There'd been a fair bit of turnover of staff in the previous years. I think they had about 5 principals and 16 teachers in the previous 10 years for a 2-classroom school. So there'd been quite a bit of changeover. Something that I've always done is look to get involved with my local community, and it's something that I thought would just flow here in Nhill as well. But a month in, we were struck down with the pandemic and sending all the kids home. So fortunately, they're now back at school, and it's been great to have them back here, and we've seen growth. So we've had over 100% growth. We've gone from a school of 33 years ago to an enrolment of 67 at this stage for next year. So things have progressed well. I think moving to a rural community as a new principal or a teacher, it offers unique opportunities to immerse yourself into what's essentially a close-knit community, has its own diverse environment. There's a strong sense of community, shared values and traditions, but it does take time to build those connections and relationships and to get to understand and respect the dynamics of the community. I think it's important to find out about the place where you're working with, the school or the community as well. Listen to the stories that the locals have to share. Show a genuine interest in what they're sharing with you. If you can understand, get an understanding of the knowledge of the community's history and its culture, and finding out what things that community holds dear and important to them. I know whenever I visit a school, or even in my role as a football coach or umpire over the last 35 years, one thing I like to do in the rooms is just go and have a look at the honour boards, look at the photos, find out a little bit about what makes that club or that school tick, who they are, where they've come from, what sort of things drive them. So getting that background knowledge of a place. And with schools and clubs, looking at the vision and mission statement, it gives you an insight into what the school or the club values. When was it last updated? Is it a living document, or is it something that is on the wall because that's where it's supposed to be? So for me, sport's always been an opening into my local communities, and now in my role, when I interview prospective staff members, I try to find out a little bit more about what their interests are and whether they're going to be able to assimilate in our local community, find out whether they're into sports, or do they like bushwalking in this region, 4-wheel driving, are they involved with drama groups or service clubs, and where that connection with the community might come in. Certainly when I'm interviewing, I'm looking for someone who's going to be good in the classroom, but I'm also looking for someone who's going to want to stay and be a part of our community, that it's more than just being part of a school. I think when you're listening to your local community, you want to find out more about their traditions, their festivities, their events, the things that they hold special, and have that open dialogue and collaborate with them and share some of your own thoughts, but also finding out what's important for them. I think being open to listening, maybe adjusting your own plans along the way. You might have the same vision, but if you can bring the community along with you harmoniously, I think there's benefits for everybody. One thing I try and encourage is welcoming local personnel into your school. I think if you can use local contractors wherever that's feasible, helps to build those connections and those relationships within the community. Inviting locals in to speak at an assembly, or even to read to a class. It might be the local librarian or a police officer, someone from the local diner. They're all people that your students and school community know, and it's an opportunity for students to be able to see them in a different light, and the locals as well feel valued because you've invited them along and include them in your school. I think developing a genuine interest in what for your students, and even with the families, asking the kids how they went in their sports on the weekend, or how many goals they kicked or scored. How was the trip to Adelaide to catch up with Aunt Mary? How's the harvest going for us in the Wimmera Mallee? All those sorts of things show that you're interested in what's happening outside of just what's happening in their textbooks. And asking the parents too, they appreciate that interest being shown in them. I know schools are tending to become a bit more business-like, and I've heard parents and students being referred to as customers and clients, but I try and leave that side of the business side of things to the business manager and work on that relationship thing and the human component. I think that's pretty important. I like to try and encourage my families to have a voice, similarly with the staff and the students. That the whole community is invested in our school, so I want to hear what others feel is important, what they value, what they would like to see changed, improved upon, whatever. In the first year here, I was here at St. Pat's, one staff meeting. We took all the staff, not that we're a big staff, but we did a walk around the school, and each person shared their story about their classroom or their admin area, who gave them an opportunity to tell their story, and it informed me more about them. Some staff members had been here for more than 30 years and some had been here for a few months, so it was a good opportunity for everybody to hear what was important for each other and the way we operate and so forth. And it's something that we continue to do today. They came up with some ideas and thoughts of what they'd like to do, particularly this was right at the start of COVID as well, and during COVID and being at school with a few kids, it gave us an opportunity to do some work around the place and giving the staff that ownership to run with their idea was something that they certainly valued. Opportunities to invite parents into the school is certainly important, whether it's events like Mother's Day and Father's Day, our school assemblies, our school masses, parent-teacher interviews, all integral part of the parents and families getting involved in their children's educational journey. We use our local paper a lot, so showcasing what's happening within the school, sharing that through the local paper. We've got a good relationship there, but also our social media, so that Nana and Pa who live interstate can see what's going on at the school as well, and that's really taken off over the last few years. We work closely in partnership with our local government school. We're a small Catholic school, but we work in partnership as much as possible with Nhill College, which is P12. So try and build those relationships. There's actually 3 schools here in Nhill, so a town of 2,000 people, and we've got a Catholic primary, a Lutheran primary, and the second or P12 government school. So we've developed a good partnership with the college, and our students go across and compete with them in the athletic sports and their swimming sports, and we compete as a 4th house. So I think it's important to build that relationship with the local schools as well. And we've had discussions about the fact that there's 2 buses leave Nhill every morning to go to Horsham, which is 80 k's down the road, and one going to the Catholic secondary and one going to the Lutheran secondary schools in Horsham. But we've had conversations with the Nhill College about being able to have our students go and visit the school and get a feel for what's happening there, opportunity to be involved in subjects that they can't necessarily do here or don't have as much opportunity to do here at our primary school. And so they've been able to get involved with robotics and STEM classes and food classes and so forth. So we're building that rapport and that relationship. It's when we've got the buses going out, and there's some who will go because wanting to continue with their Catholic or Lutheran education, but there's other kids who we want to encourage to still be a part of the local school as well. And we have seen a decline in numbers with over the years with kids getting on the bus each morning, but it also affects things like sporting clubs. So where kids get on a bus and go to another town for school, they would then want to play sport with their new mates and everything as well. So that has effect on the local community. So we're trying to make sure that we're keeping that relationship good with the government schools, and in turn with the local community through the sporting groups and so forth. Having taught in rural schools for over 30 years, certainly enjoy the connections that you're able to make with locals and with the students. And one of the things I've certainly loved about teaching in a rural school is that students and families do feel that connection. If you're down the street or at the footy, at the market, wherever, kids are keen to come and say hello, and parents are keen to cross the street and say hello as well. And they want to talk to you about anything. It's not just about school. It's more that neighbourly friendship thing, that country feel that I don't think you always get in the city schools. So, and that comes through building those relationships and connections. As I've mentioned, there's been opportunities to speak at numerous 21st, and I think I've emceed about 8 weddings for former students, and that comes through building that connection within a rural community. I think some of the things that you want to be wary of in the country schools is if you've come from a city background, don't come in assuming that we're all country hicks. We have seen a lot of teachers have come from the city who have that feeling of superiority over some of the people in the country areas. Teachers, just as teachers have to be doctors and nurses and lawyers and psychologists and all sorts of things. A lot of our farmers and, for example, are running their own business. They're accountants, they're meteorologists, they're scientists. So, and they probably went to your school as well. So they're invested in your school. They've got a connection to it. They value its history and its future as well. Another thing to be wary of is isolating yourself from the local community. As I said, be actively involved in community events and have a presence there and a connection. And don't be afraid to move your school forward. Certainly found during the pandemic with online learning, and even our foundation students were able to jump online and connect with each other and connect with their teachers. So now that we're moving through the pandemic and coming out the other side, hopefully, that we don't just revert back to what we've always done. Look for those opportunities, even in remote areas. Look for those opportunities to extend our students and keep up with the digital world. And yeah, so I'd certainly encourage that. So I guess in wrapping up, I think a rural community, whether you're a principal or a teacher, gives you that unique opportunity and gives you some challenges as well. But hopefully teachers can establish themselves as respected and valued members of their community by following some of those ideas, and through genuine efforts to get to know and understand and contribute to the community, then we can foster a positive educational environment that benefits both the students and our broader rural community. Thanks, Brendan.
Thanks very much, Kingsley. That was terrific. Kingsley, you've been a very active member of both the Horsham community and now the Nhill community. You've taken on extra responsibilities, like you're chair of the Relay for Life program in the Wimmera, various sporting clubs. How important do you think that is in terms of developing those connections with the school community?
I've found them to be highly valuable over the years, and I guess, point of disclosure, Brendan and I have known each other for a long time. Brendan was president of junior football club when I was first approached to coach a junior footy, and it was actually a local copper who was coaching one of the teams, came along and spoke to me and said, look, you obviously have a connection with kids. I was coaching a swimming club at the time, so you've got a connection with kids. Here's a great opportunity to be involved and have that connection with them outside of school through football. He, as a police officer, saw the benefits of that, of having that connection with kids, and for them to be able to see him as someone other than just a police officer. And I think it opened many doors for me through being involved with a sporting group. Football was one of the first ones, but there's been other areas as well, and certainly community involvement, being on hospice auxiliary committees, and as you mentioned, Relay for Life, and a number of other groups around town, Rotary clubs now, and so on. So I think any opportunity to wear your school gear and be seen as a member of a particular school, but contributing to the community is highly valuable.
Thanks, Kingsley. Perhaps just a second question before we move on to John. What structures do you have in place in the school, or avenues that are available for the communities to provide a voice in the school?
Yeah, so we say it's an open door policy. Anybody can come in at any time to come and have a chat with me, and so that there's that openness. I'm the person out on the street every morning, every night, that's waving at every vehicle that goes by, and meeting every child as they arrive, and talking with the families each morning. So anything that puts your face out there, I think, is good. Other structures, certainly we encourage the staff to get involved wherever they can. Sporting club is a huge thing in our town, and so we have a staff member who doesn't play sport at all, but has got involved as a team manager. We've got somebody helping out. We've got a large Karen community here of refugees, and so we've got staff members who help out at the local community house, assisting with homework programs and things. So yeah, so our staff are well aware of the importance of being involved and not just rocking up at work on a daily basis.
Thanks, Kingsley. Now, it's my pleasure to introduce our second speaker this afternoon, John Richmond. And I did note that John's description of his background is he's a principal mentor, a coach, and an ambassador, and formerly the principal of Birchip College. And I do know that Andrew Sale is online there, who is the current principal of Birchip. Good to see you, Andrew. So hand over to you, John, to talk about your community connections.
Thank you, Brendan. And hopefully you might be able to see my screen. Is that right? You can see the screen all right?
Yes, that's good.
Rightio. Hello, everyone. My name's John Richmond. Yes, I've been at Birchip for many years, in fact. And so long enough to have taught the current AP's wife even. So, but I was lucky enough to come to Birchip in 1977. And so, and I've lived in Birchip for the rest of, for that time. But I thought I might talk about the discussion today and focus it on the AITSL Leadership Standard number 5, which is engaging and working with the community. And I thought I might focus on the AITSL standard because as people are going through leadership, it's actually important to develop some of these good leadership capabilities as you move forward. But I know as a leader and as a teacher, a leader, and then a school principal, for example, I felt it was always super important to encourage staff to live locally. And so part of the part of the recruitment process, I think, was making sure that you had organised accommodation for these people so that they felt part of the community even before they came. And so as you were interviewing these people for a possible job, you would also bring in the idea that perhaps there was a house ready for them as well, and that might have been a teacher house. So in Birchip, where I came from, and now Andrew's taken over as the principal and doing an incredibly good job, but I think there's 6 or 7 teacher houses and 3 teacher flats, and they're required to occupy. And so one thing I would always say, please don't let those teacher houses and flats go by, and really impress upon the Department of Education to upkeep them on a regular basis, because it's very hard to get accommodation now in regional and rural areas, and for that matter, in towns like Bendigo and Ballarat. So that's one of the biggest issues of attracting people to local communities or small communities, is the accommodation. I believe that teachers are amazing organisers, and they have amazing skills. And so it's really good to be able to introduce our new teachers to the community. Now, these teachers, and Kingsley touched on this before and said that we need to get people involved in the local community, but they become coaches, presidents, secretaries, treasurers, leadership. They're organisers, so they might be the book club person, they might be a CWA president, they might be church organisers and things like that. There is a variety of jobs in small country towns that require the skills of people like teachers. Teachers have the gift of the gab, I suppose, but they're organised, they know how to bring people together, and they generally have good people skills. And I think it's really good to actually utilise those. But by introducing our teachers, new teachers, to the community, it then automatically develops those relationships. And I know that Andrew has taken on a new teacher this year, and it was good to see that he's already involved in coaching in one of the local underage football teams. But it gets them involved in the community, they become part of the community, and it just adds to their awareness of how the community operates. So that's on staff. If I move to the community, I think it's, as Kingsley was saying, it's really important to get parents involved. Parents are, besides our students at the school, parents are our #1 key supporters of the school. But we need to exploit them in a way, and I don't mean that horribly, and I mean go out and reach out to them for parent support, camps, reading support, excursions. But they might even be nurses or, and as Kingsley was saying, policemen, CFA people, SES, CWA. They have these other skills. They can come in and come into our school and talk to our students and be part of our school. But it allows our students to see these people in our local community, but also in the school environment as well. And I think it's really important to actually have that open door and welcome both community and school into each other. I think that the school and community need to be mutually supportive of each other. And once you've got that mutual support of each other, then you've actually got the school embedded into the town. Now, unlike Nhill, Birchip has one school. And it's interesting that the school kind of starts from, well, it's a P12, but if you really think about it, there's also a co-located kindergarten, childcare centre, and maternal and child health. So in reality, it's actually a 0 to 18 learning precinct, where a child's born. As soon as that child's born, I believe that they get, and they still get, a congratulation card. They get a couple of board books, and then they are welcome to like a program that might be called Shake, Rattle and Read, where the school actually provides literacy support and support to parents to welcome them to the education system or the school. I know that Russell Christie, the assistant principal at Birchip, does an amazing job when it comes to work experience and structured workplace. So SWL, structured workplace learning, ASBAs, that's Australian School-Based Apprenticeships, for senior students. So getting our kids into the community to actually work. And so the kids might be doing literacy and numeracy at the school, and they might be doing woodwork, for example, but they might also be doing certificate 2 in motor mechanics, or certificate 2 in diesel mechanics, or something like that within the community. Or they might be doing an ASBA, or they might be doing a work placement at the local engineering workshop. Getting our kids into the community whilst they're still at school as well is giving us the idea that it takes a village to raise a child. And so it's not just the school that's raising the children, it's also the community as well. I've got newspaper and local paper there. Now, the newsletter is something where I think that the school needs to celebrate everything that happens in the school and make sure that everybody in the community gets it. So I can remember for a short time, I was the acting principal at Warwick Nabil. And one of the first things I did in the first week was went down and introduced myself to the local editor of the newspaper, the Warwick Nabil Herald, and said to him, I don't believe that there's a newsletter in the local paper. But if we wrote the article and put a couple of photographs with it, would you include it in your weekly Warwick Nabil Herald? And he said yes. So then you're celebrating what's happening at the school at the local level, excuse me, and then the local community are finding out the good things that is happening at your school. And I think that's really important, to celebrate the good things that's happening at the school. And I know that at Birchip, for example, Andrew's continued to that weekly newsletter where students and staff are celebrated for the work that they do. And there's always a weekly article in the Bull Oak Times, for example, celebrating the good stuff that happens in Birchip. I want to move on to the alumni. So the very first point was, it's a great idea, I think, to organise DGR status. Now, DGR stands for Designated Gift Recipient Status, which means that if somebody wants to give money to the Birchip P12 School Building Fund, for example, they can actually get that as a tax deduction. And so by obtaining DGR status for your school, then you can actually then say to people, hey, hang on, we've got a building fund here. Would you like to give so much per fortnight or per week or per year? And that money can go into the building fund, thereby building up some coffers. Now, I know that at the Birchip one, it's not just the building fund, but it could also be used to buy carpet, furniture, paint walls, and do lots of, building structure, like maintenance as well, I believe. And as I said, Russell Christie then came along and said, hey, listen, we can actually encourage people to contribute to that. And so he built an alumni around that. And so, and Andrew and Russell, I think, might even talk about this later. But what happens there is that every second year, ex-students come back to the school to talk about their careers after they've left school. And so they're informing our current group of kids of the possibilities after school. But at the same time, on the other odd years, Russell and the school have organised an activity in Melbourne where it's a cocktail type party down in Melbourne, and you bring the alumni together with school reps and you showcase a bit more of the school, but you're celebrating all the good things that have happened at the school. And so it kind of builds up this real encouragement to say that, the place that educated you is still valuing you, and we want you to help us value the next generation. So I think that's really important. A lot of those alumni, they give so much per fortnight, and they also add to student prizes as well. So, and I know that when I was there, for example, sometimes speech night prizes might have even added up to something like $8,000 worth. And so there was a considerable amount of money being able to give out to students to highlight excellence within education. And so, in sport, you get your best and fairest and all that. So sport prowess is celebrated very much. I think it's important just as much to celebrate education and growth in education. I just kind of move on again to, I've got there encourage relationships. And I think it's really important that, especially in a small country town, sporting clubs, we need to share our facilities with them. So I've got football, netball, hockey, tennis, cricket, golf. Every one of those clubs in some way has a connection with the school, because we might have things that they want, or they have things that we want. And so again, it's a mutual relationship there where they can help us, we can help them. And I think that's a very important thing. St Vincent de Paul. Now, I know this year, for example, we've had some community luncheons, but instead of us preparing the food for the community luncheons, I actually went to the school and said to Andrew, hey, listen, do you think we could get the kids at the school, and that's the vocational major students, can they make the food and get it ready for us, and then they can then serve the food out, and at the same time, they're engaging with people who are coming in to get this food. So I think that using the school and giving them an outlet to be able to showcase their skills is terrific as well. I know that Andrew ran a Year 9 Advanced projects for many years, and the linking with SES and CFA and street numbering. And so you're actually getting the kids out of the school, and people in the community are seeing what these students are doing in the school community. I know that we had an art show, not this year, but last year, whereby the kids actually went and did a mural. And so I again went to Andrew and said, hey, listen, can we use some of the kids at the school to do a mural down the street? And now Birchip's got something like about 7 or 8 murals. But it's again getting the kids involved in those activities. I will bring up that kindergarten, daycare, and maternal and child health. I think that was one of the really good things I think that really came about, because I think that we did not have a real daycare centre, but now we've got 3-year-old kinder, 4-year-old kinder, wraparound daycare, and maternal and child health co-located at the school. So that enables a teacher or an education support staff worker or a parent or whatever to actually come, drop their kids off, go to work, and then of course they can come and pick their children up later. It's an amazing precinct at the present minute. School resources. We've got furniture at schools, and so if you're having a trotting meeting and they want 200 plastic chairs, of course they're going to come to the school and say, can we have a lend of those? Because the kickback there might be that they might have made a bit of money and give the school, I don't know, $5,000, let's say. It's a possibility. But there's community organisations that make money, and if they know that the school's out there to support them with resources, they're going to think very kindly of the school when we need money. So think about and not charging people. Like in small country towns, I don't think that you should be charging people for lots of these things. But furniture, photocopying.
John, just 2 more minutes, please.
Thank you. Hospitality, technical stuff. So there's a whole heap of resources there. The last couple of comments I will make, though, is L to P. That's an L plate to P plate driving program, where Birchip Cares runs out of the Birchip P12 school. It's administrated by the Birchip P12 school, but kids get driver education from there, so they can go off and have a person assist them with their getting up there 120 hours. But it's also a volunteer transport service as well. And then the school community library. That's an agreement between the local shire and the school, where the Birchip school is also the local community library. And then I'll leave that on the screen there, the links with the university. That's super important. Go out and link in with the education faculties at a university. So we did that at Federation University, and we actually had a constant supply, I believe, of Masters of Teaching and Education students on tap, just about, coming to the school. I think there was once a time when we had a third of our teachers that actually were graduates of Federation University, but we welcome them to come to the school. They undertake classroom observations, give us feedback, we give them feedback, but you've got to sell the school to those pre-service teachers. There's my email address and there's my phone number. Happy to have a conversation at any time. That'll do, Brendan. Thank you.
Thanks very much, John. That's terrific, and really appreciate the fact that you've linked today's topic to the HSL leadership standard, engaging and working with the community. I think that's very useful, and the various elements that you've identified today. Great presentation. Now, it's my pleasure to once again introduce Mark, who will accordingly introduce Nigel, our third speaker today.
Thank you, Brendan. As many of you know, CEP partners with Central Goldfields Shire to deliver the Energy Breakthrough event in Maryborough each November. And Nigel is our education leader for that program, and we'll be talking about the program today. And just before Nigel jumps on, last year we had some VIP tours that we offered to anyone or school who were interested, and I was involved in some of them, and they were a brilliant way, and some of those schools have since got involved. So before Nigel even speaks, we'll certainly, I assume that we're running those again, Nigel. I'm happy to be involved. They're just a wonderful way for people to be behind the scenes. I think we even had them at the finish line or the start of the race where all the excitement was happening. So it's a really good way. If you haven't been involved in the past, but maybe you're interested, it's a good way to get involved. But that's it. I'll pass over to Nigel.
Great. Thank you, Mark. I hope you can all hear me well, and I'll just pass over to my presentation now. And so I am coming to you from Bendigo. Part of my history is that I participated in this Energy Breakthrough program myself as a student, and then I enjoyed it so much that I wanted to continue on and volunteer, which I did for a number of years, and then began working with CEP in the early 2000s and have been participating in different ways ever since. So as Mark mentioned, this is a partnership between CEP and the Central Goldfields Shire Council. That's based in Maryborough, for those of you who aren't aware. And I just wanted to speak this afternoon about some of the ways that the Energy Breakthrough can be used for creating those strong community connections, and maybe sharing some information as well about some different components of the Energy Breakthrough program, which might have changed. If you're brand new to it, this might all be new. But if you have maybe seen it before and you just think of it as a racing event, there's a few other things that we wanted to speak to and share about as well. Our motto, and Kingsley spoke a little bit about visions and mottos. Our vision is to be powered by imagination, and that is what we want our school students who participate in this long-running STEM program to be all about. We want them to be sparking up their imagination, no matter where they are in Victoria and beyond. Regional, rural schools, independent, public, Catholic, specialist. It's really a melting pot of opportunities, and we're really amazed that we can put out a series of challenges at the start of each year to schools, and they can come back and respond to that in all sorts of different ways. There's not really a one-size-fits-all approach, and it's not really a one-size-fits-all in education anyway. These are some of our partners and supporters that get behind it, including the Department of Education. So we do appreciate their support for putting this on, because it is an education program that works in schools. The very brief history, and we do seem to have a bit of a Mallee theme this afternoon. So back in 1991, there was a number of schools that were engaged by the then Country Education Project, CEP. They were competing in this event over in Adelaide called the South Australian Pedal Prix. And now the CEP team at the time thought, oh, we could keep supporting them and funding them to keep going across the border to South Australia to this race, this human-powered vehicle race that was happening over there. Or we could look to actually start something new in Victoria and own it ourselves, own the concept more. So CEP ran an expression of interest process for a host location, and there was a number of different locations that bid for that. And they wanted it to be around a strong education focus, and Maryborough was the successful bidder in that. So that was back, the first event was in 1991, so we've just ticked over 30 years, and that initially was 8 push carts and 18 pedal-powered vehicles, and a collection of petrol-powered vehicles as well. So this is what things look like in the early 90s, some really interesting school creations, and that has evolved over time to something that now looks very, very evolved, shall we say, and very complex. And as we said, it attracts schools from right across the spectrum I'm really pleased to say we still do get a number of schools from the Mallee to come across to Maryborough. So now we have roughly 3,500 students this year from 108 different schools. And roughly that all culminates in an event in Maryborough of about 15 to 20,000 people. And in terms of economic benefit, that's roughly $4.7 million to the Maryborough economy. So they're pleased to be the hosts. And those groups of students are in different teams of activities that they participate in. There's a quick snapshot of where all the schools are, and I did promise that there was some in the Mallee, and there are, which is great. And it is this combination from all the way up in Sydney and in Orange, all the way across regional rural Victoria and including the metro areas as well. And we really support schools no matter where they come from. We just want them to participate and engage in the program. That's the actual event site in Maryborough. If you haven't been there, we do encourage you to come and participate in a site visit. It's the last weekend in November each year, staggered off the back of when the VCE exam period is. So it is a schools program, and it's designed to be a continuum of challenges. So it starts at this activity called the Junkyard Challenge, which we provide students and schools with a whole bunch of recyclable materials. It might be old bits of wood, metals, those sort of things. And then they need to build something that responds to a challenge in that time. It might be to carry 3 litres of water, or be a crane or a bridge, this real STEM activity challenge that they have to complete. And they have to do that in a couple of hours, and they're marked around how well they work together as a team. We also have just introduced robotics, and I know, I think it was Kingsley mentioned robotics before. So this is a great program that really schools anywhere can participate in. We do offer some PD exercises through one of our team members, Rob Higgins, who is ex-principal from Leongatha Primary School. And Rob will go and work with a number of different students and teachers. We know, and he's uncovered that he's spoken to a few schools that might have Sphero robots or different robotics technology, but they don't always have an application for it. The schools are often looking at these boxes of equipment and thinking, oh, they're really great, we're just not sure what it is. So Rob's actually invented a couple of different challenges for schools to participate in. So there's a couple of different labyrinth activities which students have to code up for, and then a really fun creative dance activity as well. So that one's really great because, it is using those robots and that new technology, coding. It's one of the ways of the future. But also it's a great activity for students that aren't particularly sporty, that aren't going to hop in some of these other vehicles that we actively participate and promote as well. We have push carts, which are based on the Humble Billy cart. So they go through a number of different activities, often engaging with local trades to build. And then the human powered vehicles, which are pedal powered vehicles, and they race around the track for either 14 hours or 24 hours around the track. And then the last ones, which is our energy efficient vehicles, they're our electric vehicles. So students are building electric cars now, which is largely part of the way of the future. So here are some of the photos of those different categories: the Junkyard Challenge, the robotics in action. We did a test run of that last year and successful trial, so we're going to roll it out. There's the push carts. So one of their activities is that the students, they do have to assemble these in front of a group of judges in under 20 minutes from flat pack. So they are judged on how they work together in completing that as part of the assessments. The human-powered vehicles, and both primary and secondary, and then some of our electric vehicles as well, and pedal electric, so a combination of those. So it's designed to be a student project from prep to VCE level, and it's really targeted around energy efficiency, environmental efficiency, and also new ideas around transport, ways of moving things more effectively. How is it an education program? I sort of hear you ask. it's got 3 components. So the students are assessed not only on their trial components, which is their on-track activity, they also need to complete a display and presentation, which is a presentation to judges at the event. So there's some public speaking involved there, some of that activity. A design and construction, which is where they have a conversation with some judges about what they've built and why, and then those on-track components. And so you can just see from the pie charts there that each of those different elements helps balance out one another in terms of their overall score. And so you might have a team that's really strong on the track, but if they can't present well and if they don't know what has been built and why, then they won't score so well. And vice versa. If they're strong in the off-track areas, they can win back some points as well. I promised to share a little bit about how this actually builds different community connections. And so really since 1991, this has been a way for teachers and parents and local industry to work together in different ways. So we put out this challenge, and it might be around robotics, it might be around junkyard challenge, or it might be around push carts. And this can be a way for different trades to come and be that extra person in the classes. So there might be a local engineer that wants to come and participate. It might be a farmer or someone who's really interested in welding and being a part of the program. They might actually have some speakers on some other aspects around nutrition. I know someone earlier mentioned about having someone from a local diner or a local restaurant. Well, they're going to be doing physical activity. So how does that tie in with different things? So this can, pardon the pun, but it can be a really great vehicle for bringing all those different groups together, the students with their parents, with the teachers and the local industry working together, learning things along the way. And sometimes it's in school, sometimes it's out of school, sometimes it's a mix of both of those things. And so we do see time and again that this is a great way to bring communities together. And one of the guys I went to school with, who I participated in the program with, he did go to eventually to Warwick Nabil Secondary College, and he helped start up the Energy Breakthrough program at Warwick Nabil. And he was an arts teacher, but he was organized enough and he could use his creative flair to bring all the different people together, work with local industry and local mums and dads, and help put the event together. And I guess Mick being an art teacher, he meant that the vehicles always looked really slick as well. So there's all these different ways that this CEP program can plug back out into the different community around that STEM, those STEM headings. It might be in the providing different components. It might be metalwork. It might want someone locally who's really eager to do some welding, some of those recycled materials I spoke about. Often there might be a paint shop or an automotive paint shop in town that wants to donate some bits and pieces. It's a way of integrating and building those community connections, and they can have some real pride in what they're creating. It might be all the way through to batteries and electric motors. As I mentioned before, there might be people who in your communities who are really great around engineering concepts or ideas, or just want to talk about teamwork and motivation to this group of students. In the display and presentation part, that's often where you can start connecting with your local drama groups or different people around storytelling and public speaking. And that's often where we talk to schools about how they've gone around sponsorship. This is a extra special camp, so we need to make sure they bring in enough dollars to make it work. And then in that trial component, as I've mentioned, it might be nutrition, it might be race strategy and science, and then parent attendance at the building sessions or the training sessions, and then at the event, it can really build those strong, lasting connections. So where we're now really positioning this Energy Breakthrough program, it is around the upper primary school age up to year 9 and year 10. That's really its sweet spot. We do program it up to year 12, but we're finding now more and more at VCE level, students are starting to look to their academic future rather than participate in some of these other extracurricular activities. Not all the time, but that's often what we're seeing. In rural and regional schools, through these CEP connections, through those individual schools and clusters. But it's really interesting. A lot of schools are seeking an engagement program, if you like, for disinterested students. So that tricky year 8, year 9 group of students, sometimes boys, sometimes girls, who are just losing interest with school and don't really want to be a part of activities or things anymore. This can be actually the vehicle to bring some students back. That's what we're hearing from teachers that we're speaking to and talking to about how they're using this as something that's learning by stealth, essentially. This is one of our small schools that participates, Avoca Primary School. They've got here one of their pedal-powered vehicles in their pushcart, and yeah, they love the program. They basically shut the whole school down to come to Maryborough for the event, and you know, that comes right from the principal all the way down to grade 4 level that people are actively involved, and then you know, all the parents, all the siblings, everyone else from that school gets involved as well. And you can see behind them, it's some of the posters they've created to tell the story of their engagement in the program. So there's lots of ways to do it. As Mark said before, if you want to book a tour or be a part of that, or just even set up a call with some of us, we've got videos, we've got one-pagers, those sort of things that we can talk to you more about. But I will hand back very quickly to you, Brendan. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Nigel. Mark, do you want to make any comments there?
Just say a fantastic program, and I know there's an engineer company in Bendigo, and he told me everyone who works in there has actually been through Energy Breakthrough program, and I know Paige Scott, who plays this in AFLW, attributes the program to the values that she set up as far as an AFL footballer, and some guy called Oscar Piastri, who also did Energy Breakthrough, who I think races cars around a little bit. So there's been some great success stories there. Nigel, well done. Thank you for today.
No problems. Hope I've provided some more information about different ways to get involved. So.
And Nigel, just a quick question. Have you found the program has encouraged greater connections between primary and secondary schools, where the secondary students come in and support the primary schools to put parts together, for example?
Yeah, often they do. So particularly schools will often work in a bit of a cluster. So yeah, it might be the secondary school students come down and help build a pushcart for the primary school students, or might help do some of the preparation work as well. Yeah. And then at the weekend itself, we get requests from different schools, and they'll often camp together, or they'll share resources together as well and build some of those connections at the event as well. We also see when they're practicing, they'll co-book an activity, say a local velodrome or a local car park or something like that, and they'll practice together and share some of that knowledge and enjoyment. So the students are able to work over different levels as well.
Terrific. That certainly builds community connections. Absolutely. I'd also like to thank Kingsley, John, and yourself, Nigel, for your presentations today. Reminder to everybody that once again, today's session has been recorded, so it will be available later in the week and next week if you want to go back and review the session. And if you have a look in the chat box, the link to the survey is there, and I would encourage everybody to make sure you completed the survey before you sign off today. And also a further reminder that the fourth and final session for this series has a focus on staffing strategies, recruitment and retention, which I think may be regarded as the #1 issue at the moment in education. So I would really encourage people to tune in again next week and perhaps mention this to your colleagues, because I think next week's session will be very important to a lot of schools. So thank you to everybody for your participation today. I'll sign off now. Please fill in the survey. Bye-bye for now.